Susan hesitated, then shook his hand. For the first time, she allowed herself to hope that this strange, unorthodox arrangement might be her chance to reclaim her life. But as she left the office that day, clutching her copy of the contract, she couldn't shake the feeling that this deal was only the beginning and that the road ahead would be far more complicated than either of them anticipated. The arrangement was simple on paper, but life rarely adheres to simplicity. As weeks turned into months, Susan and David found themselves navigating a tenuous partnership, each confronting unexpected challenges that blurred the lines of their strictly professional agreement. Susan moved into the townhouse David had arranged for her, a space that felt both luxurious and isolating. The rooms were impeccably furnished, the refrigerator stocked with gourmet meals, and the closets filled with clothes that fit her for the first time in years. Yet, the silence of her new life was deafening. For someone who had lived amidst the cacophony of city streets, the absence of sound was unnerving. To fill the void, Susan turned to her art. She covered the walls of the spare room with sketches, portraits of strangers she remembered from the streets, abstract shapes that reflected her tangled emotions, and even the beginnings of a mural that captured the faint hope stirring within her. It was her way of reclaiming her identity, reminding herself that she was more than a vessel for someone else's future. David, meanwhile, kept his distance, fulfilling his end of the deal with precision. He visited occasionally, accompanied by doctors or lawyers, ensuring that every aspect of the arrangement was proceeding as planned. His questions were clinical: "How are you feeling? Is the baby developing well?" His demeanor remained detached, but during one of these visits, something shifted. David arrived unexpectedly, unaccompanied, and found Susan in the spare room, her hands smudged with charcoal as she added details to her mural. She barely noticed him at first, engrossed in her work. When she finally looked up, she caught him staring at the wall, his expression unreadable. "What is all this?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. Susan hesitated, then shrugged. "Just something to keep me sane." David stepped closer, his eyes scanning the intricate details. "It's impressive," he admitted after a moment. "I didn't know you were an artist." Susan smirked faintly. "There's a lot you don't know about me." That remark lingered in the air, heavier than either of them expected. For the first time, David felt a twinge of curiosity about the woman he had chosen for this arrangement. She wasn't just a means to an end, she was a person with depth and talent that he hadn't bothered to acknowledge. As the pregnancy progressed, their interactions grew less formal. Susan, never one to hold back, began to challenge David in ways he wasn't accustomed to. During their conversations, she would poke at his calculated worldview, questioning his motives and the choices that had led him to this moment. "You're so obsessed with control," she said one evening, her hands resting on her growing belly.